Well, wouldn't you know it? I'm here at this great park to go on a hike, lovely day. My tire pressure light just came on. I've got a low tire, and you know, from the looks of things, it's most definitely this tire right here. I'd love to call roadside assistance to get some help right now, but out here in this remote location, I do not have cell phone reception. So I'm not going to be able to call in anybody to help me, so it's a good thing that I know how to change my own spare tire. Hi, I'm Megan. Welcome to VW Basics. If you find yourself in this sort of similar situation with your Volkswagen, perhaps I can help you learn how to change your own spare tire. So what we're going to want to first do is make sure that we've consulted our owner's manual to check for all the specific procedures in changing your vehicle's spare tire. It's very, very important that you follow those procedures to ensure that you're doing things safely. The next thing we want to make sure of is that our vehicle is on level and stable ground, as my Jetta is right now, as well as that the engine is off and that there are no occupants inside the vehicle, because we're going to jack the vehicle up in order to remove the flat tire and put on the fresh tire. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is get into my trunk and access my spare tire and my spare tire kit. So I'm going to go ahead and pop the trunk. And inside my trunk, underneath my cargo cover, I will find all the essentials I need to change the tire, including, of course, my spare tire, as well as my spare tire kit. Cargo cover latches conveniently up top here. Now, to remove the spare tire, there's a little spindle that you need to turn. And voila, here we have our full-size spare tire, which I'm going to go ahead and set aside here by our tire that needs to be replaced. Now time to remove that spare tire toolkit. A couple of rubber tabs holding it in. I've got a jack and some additional tools here. Now, one thing I may want to do to avoid scuffing up my knees, getting my jeans dirty, I'm going to borrow a floor mat from my vehicle to use on the ground. You know, before stopping in here to pick up the floor mat, it's actually a good idea for me to find something that can be used as a wheel chock. Whenever you're changing a spare tire, it's in your best interest to find a large rock or a large piece of wood that can be used to chock the tire that's opposite your flat tire. So since I've got a flat tire on the left rear side of the vehicle, I'm going to want to chock the front right side of the vehicle. And there just so happens to be a perfectly sized large rock right here. So pick that fella up and go ahead and place it firmly in front of the tire here. Now, this is just going to protect you as well as your vehicle from rolling away if for some reason the car were to roll off of the jack. So with the chock in place, I'm going to head back over to the driver's side and pick up my floor mat and carry on. All right, let's get my driver's side floor mat here. This will make a nice handy kneeling surface. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we've got in our toolkit in addition to the jack here. You can tell this has never been used. That's a fresh knot on there. There we go. Looks like I've got all the tools I need. I've got something to take off the lug nut covers. Of course, the ubiquitous lug nut wrench. Looks like a flathead screwdriver, also doubles as a Phillips head screwdriver. And I won't be needing it here, but it looks like I've got a tow hook. Set that aside, won't need it. So first step here, I've got to take off these decorative lug nut covers, and that's what this little ring-shaped tool is for. The removal is really easy. You just stick the tool inside that opening and pull towards you. Okay, those are all removed. Now the next step is I want to go ahead and start loosening my lug nuts. Now, the one thing I'm also going to need, now that I think about it, I look at all my lug nuts and I see one is a tad bit different than the other. And I saw one tool I forgot in my toolkit. That's my locking lug nut adapter. That's what you're going to have on a lot of Volkswagen models, so be sure that you always keep this with your car. Now I want to go ahead and loosen each of the lug nuts before I actually initiate jacking up the vehicle. The reason for that is when I've got the tire actually still here on the ground, I've got maximum torquing strength with the lug nut wrench. Once the tire is up in the air, if those lug nuts weren't loosened, the tire would want to spin if I encountered any resistance on those lug nut bolts. All right, now for that last one, put on that adapter. Somebody put these on here real tight. All right, those are starting to feel finger loose, so we're going to be able to start jacking up the vehicle. Now here's where it's really important to be sure of where the jacking points are on your Volkswagen. Those jacking points are detailed in your owner's manual, and that's a procedure you're definitely going to want to follow to avoid damaging the underside of your car. Before I can try and jack up the vehicle, I need to feel exactly where it goes to ensure that I've got it in the safest and most designated spot. So I can feel a little indentation in the rocker panel, almost like an arrow, that's pointing me towards a downward facing flange on the sill, and that's where the jack will go. Now there's a neat trick into making it a little bit less work for you in placing the jack. See this section right here that's kind of indented with a kind of a piece on either end? This is actually going to go around that extension of the sill. I like to hold that up onto the sill itself and then rotate this crank clockwise. And then you'll have part of the jack start to contact the ground here. And at this point you should start to feel the crank get a little bit more difficult to turn, and you may start seeing the vehicle and tire rise from the ground. Now I'll keep turning this crank until I've got clearance underneath the tire. All right, perfect. Now onto that lug nut removal. Let me get these decorative lug nut covers out of the way, along with the puller. I'm going to be using that lug nut wrench once again. And what I like to do is remove these lug nuts here until they're finger loose, and I can remove them the rest of the way with my hand. I will then remove the rim with the damaged tire, set that aside, and then start to place the spare tire back on the vehicle. All right, let's go ahead and manually remove these lug nuts. Now you may notice that the wheel will have a tendency to want to feel like it's about to come off, and just be aware of that. It's a good idea to have your other hand up here. Looks like this lug nut is still in there a little tight, so I'm going to use my lug nut wrench once again, hanging onto the tire with my other hand. There we go, and you saw how the tire moved like that? It's ready to come right off. It's like a loose tooth. Okay, let's remove this tire. I'm going to set it over here. Now let's go ahead and put that other fresh full-size spare tire back on. Now the trick with this is it's going to be a little bit heavy, just like a tire and wheel combination tends to be. So just wheel it up there onto the spindle with all your might. All right, let's get that pushed on. Okay, now I've got the spare tire seated on there with the lug nut openings in the spare tire matching up with the lug nut openings on the brake here. So let's go ahead and take each lug nut bolt and just bring it in there, tighten it until it's finger tight, and we'll finish up tightening it when the tire's back on the ground. Okay, with these all being on there finger tight, now I'm going to go ahead and lower my jack by turning the crank counterclockwise. The jack's been freed from the underside of the vehicle. Now what I want to do is go ahead and take my lug nut wrench and start tightening these bolts until I can't tighten them anymore. But remember, you don't want to strip off the bolts. And the last one's going to need that wheel lock key. And these can probably be tightened a little bit more, so I'm going to stand up for additional leverage. All right, that's as tight as they're going to go right now. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is pack up my tire kit here, safely put my flat tire in the back of the in the trunk here, close up the trunk, fire up the car, and I'm going to head to my local Volkswagen dealership and get this taken care of.